All right, so this is Kevin Sullivan, host of the Chronicles Chat. I am so excited. This one, I mean, everyone keeps getting better, and I was telling our next guest about this, and I'm super excited about this one because it's so relatable, I think, to so many of us. And we're going to be talking Pokemon cards today, all different facets of that with Josh Ottawa. I pronounced that correct, right?
Yeah, Joshua Ottawa.
Joshua Ottawa. Okay,
Yeah.
perfect, man. I can't thank you enough for taking the time to be on the show today. I mean, I've been following you on Instagram for quite a while. It seems like you have such a perspective in regards to Pokemon. Just kind of quick, a little bit about you. It looks like you've been collecting Pokemon cards for over 21 years. So you've been in the, I guess I don't know if it's necessarily a hobby, but the art, I guess, now these days for quite a long time, primarily focusing in vintage cards. And then you also have a large vintage sealed box collection. And this year you decided to do Pokemon full time. So I'm really excited to hear about that because if somebody not working for Pokemon can do Pokemon full time, it must be something pretty incredible that it's become, I guess.
Oh yeah, it's crazy. Do you want me to speak on that right away?
Yeah, I mean, before we even dive into that, tell us about yourself.
Sure. So, as you mentioned, I'm Joshua Ottawa on Instagram. I collect Pokemon cards. I've loved Pokemon cards. Been collecting since I was young. Started off with Saturdays being treat days with my dad, and then once every Saturday we'd rather go get some candy. I'd spend a couple bucks on some candy, or we'd get a pack of Pokemon cards from my local store in Ottawa at the time. That was at the time when base set packs, jungle packs, Rocket, Fossil, they were all $5 a pack, and
Yep,
at the
yep.
store it was
Good old
$5.
days.
Yeah, and I'm Canadian for those of you that are watching, and so it was $5 Canadian, and that was the taxes included. And so it was just like that's where it all started for me. And so from there, I've been collecting a fair bit on and off, and then on and off in my teens, and then in my late teens, I kind of picked it back up a bit, and then in my early 20s, I just started sending it. I never wanted it to be a full-time thing. I never wanted to even try to see if I can make it a full-time thing because right now I'm just in the early stages, right? I committed to giving it a full shot this year. So far, so good, but it's also a really small sample. We'll really anything can change. You know, it could change next year and we might have to switch things up. But right now, while it's working out, I'm planning on sticking around and continuing to give it my full attention because I absolutely love it. But the reason I didn't want to give it my full attention before and give it like full-time hours was because I've always loved it so much as a hobby. And I didn't want it to become something that took up so much of my time that it no longer is fun. I wanted it to stay fun. So for a couple of years, I was like, nope, I'm not going for it. I'll just put part-time
You did
hours in.
that, yep.
I'll do whatever I want, kind of when I want with regards to Pokemon. But as time went on, I found myself putting slightly more and more time into it. And I wasn't starting to like it any less. If anything, I was starting to love it more because I got to have more opportunities. I got to connect with more people like you, for example, or the first podcast I did was with Pokemon Radar. That was awesome and really broke the ice for me. And I got to know him a little bit better. Super cool guy, by the way. So it's just been more and more fun as I've been diving into it. And so I'm certainly happy I took that leap this year. And I'm looking forward to where it takes me the rest of this year and moving forward.
It's so nostalgic, man. And so many people, I don't know. I mean, it was the thing when I was a kid. I mean, it was the thing. And then, like, people like yourselves kept doing it and kept doing it. Some of us kind of just put them in the closet. God bless my mother for, you'll see a couple blunders back here. God bless my mother for keeping hanging on to mine. I know some friends that weren't quite so lucky or even just got rid of them like recently before kind of the big boom. But I think your story is synonymous with a lot of it. I mean, I was the same way. We'd go after school, if I was good that day at school, we'd go to the local Toys R Us. You had to start with like the booster boxes first because that back then, I mean, that was the best bang for your buck.
The booster packs.
The booster packs. Yep. So, and that was kind of the best bang for your buck. And then it just went on to, okay, how do I get all 151? The original 151. And I got to the point where I always confuse this story, but I want to say it was a Venusaur or Blastoise and I will
Okay.
never forget this story.
It's always a Blastoise.
It
Right
is,
on.
and
We're
it
talking
is.
about this. It's always a Blastoise.
I'm like, I have everything. I have the movie promo cards. I have everything. So I convinced my dad, and I mean, this is in the mid '90s, to go buy a, you know, Blastoise for $20, you know, from the card shop, which was back then. I mean, $20 for Pokemon cards, like, you know, probably 200 in today's inflation, but now they're obviously insane. And there was
Especially when we were younger.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Convincing it. Yeah. I mean, hey, listen, I want to be the cool kid at school that says I have all 151. But even more interesting that we go and there's this kid and he says and I was working at the card shop and I'll never forget it. He goes, hey, I have all 151 first edition.
Oh.
Full collection, Charizard, everything. And and my dad's like, you know, how much is that? And I think the guy said either $1,000 or $1,500. And my dad's like, that's crazy. You know, we're getting the one card so we can get this done and I can stop hearing about it. I'm like, that could be probably hundreds of thousands of dollars, at least tens of thousands at this point. It's always very interesting to hear everybody's story. Now, let's transition. How did you get involved in reselling? Was that a recent thing? Or, I mean, I know everybody always traded cards when we were younger, but how did it become more of a, I guess, business, for lack of better terms, and less of a hobby?
It started off with me just selling my extras to work towards the ones that I didn't have. And that ended up pulling in enough where I decided to venture and not just put all of the money that I made from selling my extras towards cards I didn't. I also started getting other things, some PSA cards, paying for PSA grading.
Really, even back then you were paying for PSA grading?
Back in like 2016-ish, I was.
Okay, yeah. Still a couple years ago before a lot of other people.
Yes. And so from there, that's where I started with reselling. And then recently, it's been more of a thing because trying to make it full time, I've really needed to try and get creative with different ways that I can pull in revenue, because relying on solely buying and selling my own cards just doesn't make sense. And it's not a long-term
play. Yeah, I get it.
Basically, because it's getting harder and harder to find vintage collections with each year that passes. And it's pretty darn hard right now, but they're still out there. But back in 2016, 2015, they were notably easier. But if you go back another few years before that, it was even easier before that. So with each year that progresses, it's getting harder. So I needed to figure out another way of pulling in revenue if I'm trying to make this a full-time thing. And so one thing that I've done recently in terms of reselling is I've offered some people that are local within Canada commission sales. So basically, so they'll give me their cards that they want to sell and I'll promote them and sell it for them. I'll take a commission that would be less than they would pay if they were to sell it on eBay. And they get to completely relax and not put any time in. They just wake up the next day with some money in their PayPal account and I send them a message saying, hey, just so you know, these cards sold.
There you go.
So it's good for them, especially if someone's busy working full time or just doesn't have the connections maybe to sell the cards. I've been able to build a small following that I can promote these cards to. So it's really exciting to see the reach grow as time goes on in terms of both the amount of cards that I'm able to move, but the cards that are able to come my way as well. So now, because of this, this step this year, I would have never otherwise been able to get some of the cards that have come my way had I not decided to make the step and kind of advertise through. Basically, that has just been a word of mouth thing until this podcast. I'm pretty max relaxed. I try not to do anything too official. Someone wants to sell some cards with me, feel free to connect with me. But if not, no worries. I've got a lot of stuff going on in the background that I'm excited to share as time goes on as well. So definitely keeping busy, but that's kind of how the reselling's been. Just trying to find other ways that make sense and then giving them a try. And if they work, sweet. And if they don't, that's okay. Try something else.
Yeah, I mean, that's great that you're doing that. It's just creating that multiple income streams, because eventually, there's a limited amount of cards. There's a limited amount of ungraded cards. There's a limited amount of graded cards. And then people get more educated on them as well. So it's kind of that perfect storm that, you're kind of navigating through. And I think that's great that you're kind of commissioning cards and, leveraging those relationships as well, in addition to obviously whatever you can get your hands on. So with that, these prices are I mean, we're looking at, and we'll get into the inflation and celebrities and all that, but we're looking at what, $500,000 for a first edition PSA 10 Charizard now, closer to $750 it looks like. I mean, $30,000 for first edition chance. I mean, I'm just going off some of the crazy things I've seen in the news. I mean, do you think these prices will hold? I mean, this is intense.
It is pretty intense with the card. I mean, everyone's going to have their own opinion. So if yours is different than mine, that's okay. It's just mine, but I'll share it with you.
Hmm.
So when it comes to a card like the first edition base set PSA 10 English Charizard, there's like 121 or 122 of them right now. Celebrities are taking those and they're just being snatched up from the market. Not only celebrities, but they've certainly been playing a role as of the last little while in terms of taking out the supply of first edition base Shadowless 10 Charizards.
Hmm.
I don't see any reason that they would decide to sell. Definitely not for anything less than they bought it for. They probably bought it because they have enough disposable income because as the legend himself, Scott Pratt says, you don't need Pokemon cards. If you have disposable incomes and you want to spend money on it, you can, but it's not a
Yeah.
necessity for life. So because they have so much, I mean, depending on the person, they have enough disposable income. I doubt they're going to sell it for anything less. So that's just taking a bunch out of the market right there. This is also the card. The card in Pokemon is the first edition Shadowless base set Charizard. There's a bunch of other notables as well, of course, but this is the most widely known card for Pokemon as far as I'm concerned anyways. And so do I think it'll go down? Well, I mean, I can't say for sure. My opinion is that markets will always have swings and you'll always see some ups and downs to at least some degree. But long term, I don't think it's going anywhere. As long as kids are still going to school with their Pokemon baseball caps and new games are coming out and Pokemon cards keep getting released every year, unless that comes to a halt, I don't see why the value is going to start going down long term. So again, that's not to say that short term some things might change. That's quite possible, but I think long term, I think we're going up.